Hello and welcome to English 911. My name is Skyla. So now you can write all of your questions to me and just address them. Dear Skyla, please help me with English. And I'm always here, ready and waiting to help you, okay? So our first letter that was sent to me today, or this last week rather, that I got to read over, is from Artyom. Now Artyom writes in, he says, when should you spell out a number and when should you write it as a number? For example, when you're writing a sentence, should you say, 7, or should you write 7? Well, the simple rule about this one is that if it's written in one word or two words, you can write it out as a word. However, if it takes, like, say, 70, I need to write here, 77 7 million, right? Then you need to write it out as letters, as numbers. Like, I'm horrible at math, 77 million would be many more zeros. Okay, so this way, if it has many words, you need to write it out as numbers. But if it has just like 7 or 6, you need to write it out as the word. However, like everything in English, there are a couple percent exceptions to this rule. For example, your birthday, you would write it out. So say you were born on March 27th, you would write March 27. We always do birthdays with the numbers. Also, addresses, like say 55 Buckingham Street, you would write 55, the number. Or also we have percentages, time. So say it's 23, I need to find a white spot. 23:58. We always write it out with the number. So remember, if it's one word or possibly two, you write it out as a word, unless it's a date, an address, a percentage, or a time, okay? Other than that, write it out as a number all the time and enjoy. Remember, math is fun. It's great to learn. It's great to use. Numbers are great to use in English as well. So now on to our second question, which we would write out like this. 2ND, second, which is from Victoria. Okay, Victoria's question made me smile, so I just had to include it today. Victoria's question is, well, let's just erase so we have room. Clean off our board here. Okay, irony, sarcasm, and facetiousness. What's the difference? Well, here, let's go. Irony, sarcasm. These are probably two words you've heard before. However, our last one is probably, it's not as common as a word, but it's a very fun word. Facetiousness. Let me make sure I'm spelling it right. IOUSNESS. Facetiousness. Okay, so now irony is using words to express basically the opposite of what you're actually saying. So if I said, I'm not at all tired, it just means, if I'm using irony, that I'm really, really tired. Or, I'm not at all hungry, thank you. You could say there's hidden irony there, because obviously the person who says it, they're hungry. Irony is to say something, but you're using the tone of voice to mean the opposite. I don't know if there's a shorthand for opposite, but here we go, opposite. However, sarcasm is you're using irony, but it's in a cutting way. It can hurt. For example, say you see this girl come up and you don't really get along so well, and maybe she has a nice dress on, maybe she doesn't, and if you just look at her and say, oh, your dress is beautiful, but what you're really saying, you're using sarcasm to hurt her. It's very mean. You're saying, I think your dress is not beautiful, right? So sarcasm is the same as irony, but it's mean. It's to hurt people. It's saying something in a mean way, a cutting way. Now, the best word, facetiousness, okay? Facetiousness is to use irony in a fun way, in a jocular, happy way. Facetiousness. Now, I couldn't think of any examples right at this moment, But it's, for example, Lewis Carroll. In Alice in Wonderland, he's always using irony, right? So he uses facetiousness because he makes jokes. It's using irony to make jokes. It's saying something the opposite to make people laugh. In fact, most jokes, they end with the opposite. They end using irony, using facetiousness. So this one is to make people smile. Irony is to say the opposite. Sarcasm is to say the opposite, but in a mean, cutting way. And facetiousness, you make people smile. Okay, so now let's go on to our last question for today, which we would say, that's correct, we would say it third. Like this, we would write third. So our third question for today is from Slavic. Okay, so this question has to do with, well, I can never get my board completely clean. Okay, this question is about double negatives. Have you ever heard of double negatives? Well, here's some really good advice about double negatives. It says never say never. A double negative is, for example, saying one negative, like I don't or I didn't. So like I didn't do something, right? And a double negative would be saying I didn't do nothing, which means I did something. And it's considered improper. However, like I said, never say never. Sometimes we actually use double negatives to be polite, which is kind of funny, but English, we like to do this. For example, if I'm looking at someone's new haircut, right? And they say, oh, how do you like my new haircut? And I would use a double negative to be polite, because maybe I don't like it. I would say, well, I wouldn't say that I don't like your new haircut. It basically means, well, I don't quite like it, but I guess I like it. I'm not going to tell you I don't like it because I don't want to hurt you. So we will use this double negative sometimes to be nice to people. But remember that, try and stay away from them. For example, don't say things like I didn't do nothing, or you never take me nowhere. You want to say you don't take me anywhere, or I didn't do anything. The only time to use a double negative is if you're trying to be polite, and even then, just be nice and say what you mean, and try not to use a double negative because they're just not correct. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for coming today. It's been great. And remember, as always with English, never say never. You can always learn, you can always have more fun, more learning experiences. And for your next learning experience, I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. See you later. Goodbye. Thank you.